Hello and welcome to another video here on DAX Wednesdays. In this video, we're going to have a look at a DAX function called AllSelected. This DAX function belongs to the filter family of DAX functions. Let's switch to Power BI for the demonstration. Over here in our Power BI report, we have two visuals in the report view, a slicer and a table visual, where we have listed the Grand Slam champions from the year 2000 onwards. So we're talking about the Grand Slam champions since the Australian Open in the year 2000 to the US Open in 2024. So we're talking about a 25-year data set. Every year we have 4 Grand Slams, the Australian Open, French Open, Wimbledon, and the US Open. So if you're talking about 25 years, we should have 100 Grand Slams that have been played so far. But why are we seeing 99 over here? Because if you remember, in the year 2020, during the time of COVID, the Wimbledon tournament was not organized. The organizers of the Wimbledon tournament, they had the foresight of ensuring themselves in case there's a global pandemic. So they were happy to cancel that edition of Wimbledon. That's why we don't have 100 Grand Slams. We have 99 Grand Slams from January 2000 to December 2024. We have the big four in Andy Murray, Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal, and Roger Federer. Their tally of Grand Slam wins. I have listed the others under the grouping others. Now, one might say, all right, but we have Alcaraz who has won more than Andy Murray. Why is he not shown? But that is not the purpose. We are just using Andy Murray's name as an example. So once again, we have in the table visual the players' names in the first column, the number of Grand Slams that they have won in the second column, all number of Grand Slams that have taken place so far in this period, and the percent of Grand Slams that each of these players have won if we take into consideration that there have been 99 Grand Slams over this period. Not only that, if I were to make a selection in the slicer, you will see the table visual filters itself as per my selection, and it is not restricted to a single selection. I can select, for instance, Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer together. You see the table visual now has filtered with these two names. But now what if we want to see how many number of Grand Slams have been won by Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer in a column over here, where we have a subset of the selected values or all that has been selected in the slicer, and we represent it as the all selected number of Grand Slams like we have over here for the selection that we have just made of Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer. And then maybe we can calculate the proportion of that total that each of these players have won. So in that case, what we're going to do is we're going to deselect, first of all, the slicer. I'm going to add a measure. Let's call it all selected number of Grand Slams. Over here, we're going to use the calculate DAX function. First of all, I have made a separate video on this DAX function. You can check that out by clicking on the link at the top right over here. So calculate takes in an expression. Over here, we're going to insert the measure that we have already created, which is number of Grand Slams. This, and now we're going to filter this down using the selection that we make in the slicer. For that, we're going to choose all selected as a DAX function. Now, all selected takes in either the table name or the column name as the argument. In this case, we're going to use the column name Grand Slam Champs Winner Groups, because this is the column in which we have the names of the big four as well as the grouping of the other players. So I'm going to choose this column, close the bracket twice, and say OK. Now, since Power BI hasn't returned us any errors, this means this measure is working just fine. Now I will add this measure to our table visual, and let's make a selection of, let's say, Rafael Nadal. Now you'll see it has updated the table visual as per our selection. Now let's say what happens if we were to select both Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer. This is exactly what we wanted. We wanted to see all selected number of Grand Slams for these two, which is a total of 42. And now this number is getting reflected over here, which means the all selected filter is working just fine. And do the same for other selections. You'll see how this number changes. Now similarly, as we had found out the percent of all Grand Slams for each of these players, let's find out now the percent of all selected Grand Slams. So for instance, if we were to select Novak Djokovic and Andy Murray, how many of the 27 Grand Slams that they have won were won by Andy Murray? So we'll get that percentage. So for that, we'll add another measure like this. Let's call it percent all selected Grand Slam is equal to, let's say, divide. For the numerator, we're going to use number of Grand Slams one more time. And for the denominator, we're going to choose now the all selected measure that we had just created like this. Close the bracket. I will add this percentage measure to our table visual as shown. We'll just change the format to percentage like this. And now you see if I were to select, let's say, Roger Federer, this percentage that is shown is 100% because Roger Federer, among the 20 Grand Slam that he has won all the 20 Grand Slams, which is pretty obvious. Now let's say what happens if we were to select Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer. So among the 42 Grand Slams that they have won, 52% were won by Rafael Nadal. Now if we were to add Djokovic to this combination, you see among the 66 Grand Slams that these three have won, 36.36% of Grand Slams were won by Novak Djokovic, which is a pretty astonishing statistic. So that's all for this video. I hope you understood how we can use all selected DAX function in our measures and how we can interact our slicer visual with other visuals in our report page using the all selected DAX function. Let me know in the comments below of what you thought about this video. Do not forget to like and subscribe. I will see you in the next video.